Hello everyone and welcome to the latest Tempo Strategy Wild Meta Snapshot breakdown for the Wailing Caverns mini set. We're a few weeks removed from the Stealer of Souls ban, and the Wild Meta after the ban has moved in predictable ways. The aggro strategies that were at the top of the meta after the ban started to take a backseat to anti-aggro strategies, only for greedy late-game strategies to start to take hold again, which brings the aggro decks back around to counter them, and so on. It's a cycle as old as time, and the end result is a meta that is mostly solved, but it has a fair amount of variety as well. Of course, the top tier decks are still in a league of their own, but with developments like the growth of Shaman decks with Flurgle Toxfin combo and Primal Dungeoneer, and the adoption of Mutanus the Devourer and Control decks, lower tier decks have started to close the gap. We've got our fingers on the pulse of the meta, so come join us as we break down the format's latest developments. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to the Tempo Strategy YouTube channel to keep up with all of our latest Hearthstone meta reports. At tier 1, we have a stable spread of decks that have been strong throughout the Forged in the Barrens era, and will likely stay strong into the next expansion. To no one's surprise, Darkglare Warlock continues to be at the top. The deck has an unparalleled capacity to dominate the early game with fast giants and massive board swings, and control the late game with the looming threat of an OTK with Power Overwhelming and Tamsin Roam. Darkglare has a high power level but also a high skill cap, which means you're more likely to see the deck going into high legend than you are to see it when climbing to legend. For the climb to legend though, Secret Mage takes the place of Darkglare Warlock as Wild's public enemy number 1. It has a unique blend of hard disruption, aggression, and card draw that ensures that the deck has a role as the eternal gatekeeper. Its power level swings with the meta, since Secret Mage is exceptionally powerful against combo decks and greed, but it's not powerful into a field of heavy aggro or into a field that is conditioned to beat it with anti-secret tech. With so much relative variety in this meta, Secret Mage has plenty of excellent matchups while not being the target of much direct hate, which elevates the deck into tier 1 once again. Also joining Darkglare Warlock and Secret Mage in tier 1, we have Odd Paladin, which stands as the most relentless minion-based aggro deck in the game. With its never-ending swarms of Silverhand recruits and its constant threat of burst damage from buffs like Conviction and Quartermaster, Odd Paladin tends to dominate any deck that doesn't establish a more powerful board quickly or have the tools to clear the board constantly. Reno Priest rounds out tier 1 as the format's strongest Highlander control and combo deck, since it has the tools to find an edge in almost any matchup. Against aggro, Priest uses its heavy removal options and Highlander cards to stabilize easily, and against other control decks, the combo of Shadow Reaper Anduin and Raza the Chained gives Reno Priest an inevitable win condition with a fast damage OTK. Reno Priest's classic weakness against combo decks is less relevant in this meta, since strong combo decks like Mizaki Mage and Malagos Druid are becoming more rare. Unless the format shifts to hate specifically on Reno Priest again, we don't expect this deck to fall out of favor anytime soon. The lower tiers are where we've seen the most movement in recent weeks, with many emerging and returning decks being elevated to tier 2 or tier 3 status. One of the biggest moves is from Kingsbane Rogue, which has returned to the top of tier 2 after a long hiatus. Kingsbane Rogue can apply relentless damage with its infinite weapon, which gives it the ability to consistently challenge anti-aggro strategies, even when they have access to weapon removal through Zephyrus the Great. Kingsbane Rogue is a direct counter to heavy greed and slow combos, and although it still has weaknesses against minion-heavy aggro decks, cards like Prize Plunderer and Blade Flurry help to turn the tide against them, so Kingsbane can win the race. Galakrond Shaman is another deck that's become a solid fixture of the Wailing Caverns post-ban meta. With card draw power from Primal Dungeoneer and a faultless board clear combo with Ice Fishing, Toxfin, and Firemancer Flurgle, Shaman decks across the board have seen a massive surge in popularity. Reno Shaman and other Shutterwalk combo decks are all very popular, but the most competitively viable of the new Shaman decks is Galakrond Shaman. This deck can build a dominant board quickly, but it can also play for the late game with bombs like Shutterwalk and Galakrond the Tempest. Shaman's explosive new popularity is a big factor in the formulation of the slower meta, and we expect the class to have an influence for a long time to come. Aggro Paladin is yet another solid deck that's gaining ground in a slower meta. This deck inherits the legacy of Tax Paladin, and although it doesn't include Farwatch Post, it still has plenty of disruption through Nerubar Weblord, Sword of the Fallen, and Oh My Yogg. The deck reaches its top-end potential quickly with Crossroads Gossiper and Call to Arms, so it can close out games before many decks can even get a foothold. One other deck we want to touch on here is Mizaki Mage. We've talked a lot about the meta slow trends, and one way to take advantage of those trends is by playing an over-the-top combo that slow decks can't interact with or race. Mizaki Mage is one of the best decks to meet that criteria, since there's a limited amount of disruption that can stop Mizaki from going off. Mizaki Mage may have limited defenses against fast aggro, but against control and combo decks, it has just enough defense with freeze effects and ice block to buy all the time it needs. It might not be a great pick against Secret Mage, but if you're having trouble with Reno decks and Shamans, Mizaki Mage is an excellent choice. All in all, the post-ban meta has a fair amount of competitive variety and a more narrow gap between the top tiers and the rest of the meta than we've seen in quite some time. We don't expect too much to change between now and when United in Stormwind launches in August, but we're eager to see where the Wild meta ends up after the new set goes live. In the meantime, check out the full report on our website for all of the details on recent trends, and as always, thank you for watching.